Hello, everybody.
Are we here?
We're here. We're
here.
on, man.
I thought I was in a dream.
I know. Do you like our new countdown?
Yes.
I like it. You don't sound enthusiastic about it, Jesse.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I was just flashback to scary movie times.
Yeah. It's cool. Hey, everybody. This is Colleen with Emergency Encounters, and I'm here with the best crew ever. I'm here with the very messy
Jesse, and I am so happy to introduce our very own secret spy agent,
Dirty Birdie. And with us tonight is our newest member, sort of. How new are you?
She's not that new. Not anymore.
Anyway,
still
the
have a 90-day probation.
She's on probation.
Well, my 90 days.
90 days. Yeah, this is Cam. Yeah. And we have with us tonight a super wonderful guest. Ken, thank you for being on our show. Ken is an author. He teaches, you teach what, EMS stuff now?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, EMS stuff.
And he is the author of this book that I put the link in the chat. It's called High Strangeness. And camera. Whoa, camera. Why is it doing that? Anyway, it's a book called High Strangeness. Yes, and I've been like in page 11, so I haven't gotten that far. It just came in today. So, but yes, and so Ken, we were talking about all things paranormal, UFO, with you tonight. This is so exciting.
Yeah, I am so happy to be here with all four of you. And I just have to say, I love the countdown and the music. I thought that was so cool.
Thank you. Maybe I should put more motivational music on it. I went hard rock, but then, it wasn't creepy enough. I like the creep factor. So, yeah.
I mean, look who she's friends with. Me.
Well, I know, right? All of you guys. So Ken has been following Pocatello Paranormal Facebook page. And he got a hold of me when I put up a post saying we need people who have had paranormal stories and first responder stuff and all this. And boom, there you were. And we started talking a little bit. And then I found out you were an author of a UFO book. Well, more than UFO. It's all things paranormal, right?
It is, yes. Yeah, it's kind of the big tent approach to all things paranormal under one canvas, you know?
It's very cool. You bring up a few things in here that, like I said, I just started getting into it tonight because I just came today. But Carl Ford and who was this other gentleman that you referenced? Ford's, sorry. It was the Super Sargasso Sea idea.
Yes.
I've never heard of this. I want you to kind of go through some of the stuff in your book and we'll talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So the Super Sargasso Sea thing, that was an idea that Charles Fort had. Charles Fort being kind of the grandfather of all things paranormal in the United States. He wrote four or five books that are kind of difficult to get through in a 21st century perspective, just because the way they're written. But there's a lot of great information in those books. And one of the things he talks a lot about are strange rains. So your frogs and your rocks and your blood and your meat and all this kind of stuff falling from the sky throughout the world, which kind of seems to have magically stopped in the 20th and 21st century. But there were a lot of reports of these things in the early 20th, late 19th, and going back further. And his theory was that above the earth, there is a sea where these rocks and strange things and otherworldly beings are coming from. And that's pretty much his theory there. It's not something I really subscribe to, but it's kind of where we have this first thought that all this paranormal stuff may be related, and it's all kind of coming from the same place. So it's very foundational in that respect.
It's an interesting concept, and I wonder too, because my first degree field was in meteorology. and I wanted to do forecasting for the Navy. I ended up doing a different field in the Navy, but I'm wondering too is some of the stuff is atmospheric phenomenon, right? When you get the leading edge of a supercell that's sucking things up into it. So, and it can certainly suck up whatever's on the ground and dump it out somewhere else. But you're saying it was a larger phenomenon than this?
Yeah, I mean, maybe not. Some of it was very strange, and some of it is probably accountable to what you're saying. You know, if you have, for example, a rain of fish, you know, certainly that could be attributable to exactly what you're saying. In other cases, they had rain that was just black, that they were never able to figure out what it was. And in one instance, I wish I could cite for you exactly where and when. I can't, but they actually had a rain of raw meat, allegedly.
Yeah, the Kentucky meat shower.
Okay, there you go.
What? Okay,
Yeah,
this is another whole show. This is weird. Kentucky meat shower?
I like you think it is Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and they're throwing stuff over the. Sorry, that's
right over the castle walls. Yeah,
yeah.
That's okay. I want to go back and research the Kentucky meat shower because that sounds to me like a tornado went through a processing facility and it rained it out somewhere else. But that may not be. I mean, I want to research this. This has me really curious.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to remember, though, that Fort was not only interested in these strange rains. He was also interested in strange aerial phenomena. He documented quite a few things of astronomers noting things moving across the sun and moon. He looked into poltergeist quite a bit, spontaneous human combustion. Yeah. I mean, if there was a paranormal topic in the early 1900s, Fort was into it.
And that's where I think I remember reading some of his work was on the spontaneous human combustion. Sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
You were in my brain. You just said
it's because we're
perfect.
Like the wait. Sorry.
That's interesting stuff.
Yeah, I think this kind of stuff is really fascinating because one of the reasons you give the explanation of paranormal, what is paranormal, right, in your book. And I don't think a lot of people understand that we can't, and I tell people this in our class, our paranormal class, you cannot, it's not a science because we cannot go in and have the exact same thing happen every single time and either prove or disprove it. I mean, it's not like it's a lab setting. Mm-hmm. Things either happen or they don't. And sometimes we're at the right place at the right time to witness it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to walk over you there. Oh, no. I was just going to say, and that's like such a key thing is what is the right place and right time to witness it? And why are the people who experience this type of phenomena experiencing it? Is it something with the people? Is it that they're open to it? Is it something about where and when they are? Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot about like, you know, ley lines and things like mm-hmm. that. I don't know a whole lot about ley lines. I kind of have the basics there. Mm-hmm. Some people are way more into it than I am. And the way you're shaking your head, I'm thinking you may know mm-hmm. a little more about that than I do. But I think there's something very fundamental to the where, when, and why, and who. This type of phenomena can appear to anybody at any time, but it doesn't always. And I wonder if that is because people are just not looking for it, if they're not open to it. I mean, I spend a lot of time outside looking at the sky, and I've seen stuff up there. But like my wife, mm-hmm. she doesn't really look at the sky when we go outside. She's never seen anything like that. But we've both had other paranormal encounters that I don't know if you want to call them ghostly. We haven't necessarily seen apparitions, but we have, you know, heard things and you know, seen doors open and stuff like that. So whether or not that is you know, a disembodied spirit or something else altogether, one thing I think is very important to recognize, there's no such thing as an expert on this phenomena, in my opinion, right? Like there is, that we have no idea what we're dealing with. Like, I'm a big fan of John Keel. He's really the inspiration for this book I wrote. And he spent his entire life researching this stuff, trying to connect the dots, coming up with the super spectrum theory. And I think even he would have told you that he didn't really know what was going on, at Point Pleasant with the Mothman flap, for example, or any of these other things he investigated. It's such a mystery. And that's the fun in it, though, that's the fascinating part.
Yeah.
I am so glad you said that. Go ahead, Jesse.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, everything what you say is true. It's just like you can't say how everything is completely the same. It's not. It just there's no expert. There's no. I totally agree with what you're saying. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think
we talk about that in our class. It's like I tell the first night with our students, I say we're not experts because no one is. If they claim to be, run.
Dirty.
Because
just kidding.
Well,
I'm not an expert in anything.
Yeah, because it's not a provable science. We have so much. The more we find out about anything paranormal, the more we know that we don't know. And we keep evolving in this. And I think sometimes we're not evolved enough to understand. Like we don't know really what happens until we cross over, when we finally die, and then we're able to take on that spiritual form. But we don't completely understand it. We have communication with people that are not alive anymore, but we don't really completely understand it. We can't grasp it. I think we're genetically engineered not to probably think that hard about it because it's so scary to a lot of people. But one of the other things that you talk about too is the fact that what if these beings are here all the time? And Bertie and I have had these discussions about Bigfoot. Like, what if they're here and we can't see them? Are they using portals to move back and forth? What's happening?
Yeah, that is a fascinating question, and something that I really think when you look at, like ghosts and stuff like this, it's easy to say spirits are around all the time. We just can't see them. They may or may not interact with us. And then you start crossing over into the territory of, say, Bigfoot or Sasquatch or aliens or other beings, and it becomes a harder sell for a lot of people. There's a whole book out there called The Interdimensional Bigfoot, right? Like there's entire volumes dedicated to stuff like this. And it makes sense to me that there would be some way for these things to disappear the way that the sightings go. It's like they're there 1 minute, then they're just gone. And I think it's also super critical to recognize that these encounters are usually not standalone encounters, or at least they're not always standalone encounters, in that somebody may see a Bigfoot and they see an orb of light, or somebody may see a Bigfoot and then experience poltergeist phenomena at home, or somebody may see a UFO and then experience poltergeist phenomena. Like, this stuff does go hand in hand. In fact, if you look on MUFON's website and you one day I don't purport to be an abductee or anything like that, but I was curious, so I clicked on that link on their website, and one of the questions they ask you is, have you experienced poltergeist phenomena? Like, these things happen in conjunction with each other. It's not a necessarily a standalone thing. And I know I've kind of drifted from what we were talking about there. But yeah, as far as like portals and stuff, that really speaks to where are all of these things coming from. And there's a lot of people who believe in the interdimensional theory of the paranormal. That is a close second contender for me, very close second contender for me. I really like Keel's theory of ultraterrestrials and the super spectrum, which is just a little bit different in that instead of being in a different dimension, these beings are more like in a different plane of not even plane of existence, but like if you think about the light spectrum, how you can't see, for example, infrared or ultraviolet light, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically what Keel thought was that these beings exist on a different spectrum, but they have the ability to cross over and interact with us when they want to. So it's not quite a different dimension. It's a different vantage point. If I don't know if anyone here has ever seen the movie The Mothman Prophecies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know the line where they're on a different level where they're window washers and they can see down the street. It's not that they're better than you or they're more evolved or different, or it's just that they're different. They have a different vantage point. They can see down the road further.
Yeah. That's really a fascinating perspective. And one that not a lot of people I spend a lot of time pondering, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe it's because it's terrifying in some respects. I don't know. I think people are probably more in tune with acceptance of dead Uncle Fred than some being that can pop in and out of that's not a human, or you know what I mean? It's a little scary to think about something is watching you sleep at night and you don't know it's there. That's a little on the freak side.
Absolutely. And there's a lot, when you think about, so you mentioned like the dead Uncle Fred, but my concern with a lot of paranormal stuff is that it mimics the reality that we know and it can't get it quite right. So is it really dead Uncle Fred, or is it something pretending to be dead Uncle Fred to get our attention for some reason? Maybe.
Yeah, we've dealt a lot with mimics in our years of working in the field. You can tell when it's dead Uncle Fred. When Grandma dies and she always smelled like roses, and then roses come in before Grandma shows up and starts moving all your dishes around. Okay, it's probably Grandma. That's the dead Uncle Fred aspect. That's somebody you know who's loved you, who comes in afterwards, like my mom and dad here in the house. The mimic, something's off. Sometimes people don't want to recognize it, but something is off. It's like, well, that sounds like my dad, but that's not my dad. Because dad, if your dad loved you and you loved your dad, would give you the warm and fuzzy. The mimic does not give you the warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Jess, you had something?
No. I'm just trying to process this because every time I look at the sky, I think there is an alien above me and it's like invisible.
No.
Yeah.
But I mean, really though.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Like they could be anywhere and have this invisible cloaky thing, and we can't see them. They're like in a different dimension. It's
like
interesting.
The Arnold Schwarzenegger thing.
Yeah. There's been a handful of stories I've heard of somebody running into a predator-like creature.
Yeah.
If you've seen Dave Polide's the last movie he put out on the missing 411, there was a video that somebody took, I think it was in Ohio, where there's been a cluster of missing people that came up, and somebody got a video. Gosh, I want to say it was Ohio, but there actually, I think he presented more than one video of people showing something cloaked in the trees and moving through the trees, very much like this predator. Now, is that AI? I mean, everything can be AI now, so you never know what to believe when somebody films something. But it was really quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the concept is terrifying for me. I'd much rather face. It's the unknown. That's so scary. Paranormal, when it's dead Uncle Fred and the things that we deal with on a normal haunting, when we go into a facility or a home or something like that, we're dealing with that. That's, for me, more comfortable because I'm used to it. I've done it for years. I can kind of get to the bottom of what's going on. But thinking of something cloaked hanging out around my barn, when I go out there at night to check on the animals, I don't like that.
Yeah.
That's freaky.
Yeah, I think about going into the woods too, you know, or like I always am afraid. I shouldn't be, but I am, because you don't know. There's the unknown in these deep, dark woods. And you know, your mind starts playing, but at the same time, I've also seen things. So it's
Yeah.
Yep. People forget that the further you move away from the city, the chances of your survival start dropping more and more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you go hike 5-7 miles into the backwoods of a national park, and who knows how you're going to get got. Maybe you'll be fine, but maybe you won't.
Yeah, and the idea that Mad Max just said, maybe ghosts are more accepted. I think accepted as in being, having somebody accepted. Like we accept the fact that in many religions people cross over, but they become your guardian angels and all this stuff, and so we accept that they're here with us, and they never really leave our side. It's still scary for some people. Like all of a sudden things are moving around their house, so they still get freaked out about it. But once you're like, well, did grandma smell like roses? This smells like roses. Once they start making those connections, and then they lose their fear pretty quickly, and they understand that it's grandma. But yeah, these unknown things, like, that's freaky. And we were talking before we came on the air about what was it, plasma?
Yes.
Yeah, plasma. And what is the concept around that? Do you want to bring that up?
Yeah, sure. So this didn't make it into the book, but it's a recent kind of thought that's come out where people are looking at the UFO or UAP phenomena, and they're saying that there are potentially living plasmas in the atmosphere that are assuming these forms and interacting with us. And something that I think is really interesting about that, I think number one, it is possible or plausible that this could be what that phenomena is. You know, I could be completely wrong about, you know, all the Keel stuff, and I'm totally open to that possibility. But where I was going with that is that in Venus, they have found traces of elements in the atmosphere that they think could be a byproduct of life. And what if it's those same plasma beings that live in our atmosphere that also live in Venus's atmosphere? And then let's dig a really deep hole here. You go back to the contactees in the 1950s and the 1960s, and many of them said that their contactee with the aliens were from Venus. So I don't know. I mean, it's just a possibility. It's pretty out there, and you have to, you know, be a little off your rocker to believe it. But here I am writing books about this, and you know, it's possible. You know,
it's fascinating to ponder. Danielle, I just put her comment up on the screen, and I don't like that park during the day. Just saying. Sacagawea Park in Pocatello. It's over by the charter school, right? Where Main Street ends and it's turning into Bannock Highway there. That's Sacagawea Park back there.
No, it's the other way.
Eat lunch there.
What?
It's the other way.
Wait a minute, Danielle, if you want to put it in the comments, I'm pretty sure Sacagawea was there. So,
no, it's over by.
Is it on the other end of town by 30 on Highway 30 where the river goes under 30?
No.
No, it's right there. It's Sacagawea Park is over by the charter school.
I'm gonna Google it.
Yeah, please do.
No, it's right by a trailer park. I won't say the name, but it's right by a trailer park. I live just a couple blocks down.
Okay, so it's the one over by 30, where Main Street, North Main ends on 30.
Oh, I think
turns into Hawthorne.
No, it's over by Oakwood Street.
Man.
Wait a minute. Okay. Anyway, we're off topic. The one that I don't like is the one over by the charter school because she's
Park.
saying Sacagawea Park has a predator type cryptid around it. So there.
You know, speaking of predator type cryptids, while you guys are looking that up, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Jacques Vallée at all. He's a big UFO researcher, and
I've heard of him.
He has a great deal of books. He's been doing this since the 60s. He's up there in age now. He is pretty well versed. He's very big on the interdimensional theory. But one of the stories that he brings up, actually two, where there's an invisible being that comes after a woman walking in France, and like this hand just comes out of nowhere and just like knocks her to the ground, and she's okay. But it's exactly like you're saying with a predator type being. It's just like this hand comes out of nowhere, this invisible being knocks her to the ground and runs off. It's yeah. It just made me think of that.
Yeah. I found it and I sent it to everybody.
Where I'm looking it up right now, I
think I know where this park is. It's over like when you go by
North
the
Main.
Yeah. You go across
North
the
Main
river.
Purdy. She said by the Y. Yes. Okay. By Grant Street and the river. Okay. I'm thinking of the other end, but I don't like that park that much either. I did scent work in there with my bloodhounds. It's kind of a weird area. And we did there's a right by that on the, okay. Yes, by Grant Street. So there was a house that we did, I think it was off Grant Street, that we did a paranormal investigation in. It's basically surrounded on three sides of the property is a triangle. It's bordered on all three sides with water.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, off the chart paranormal activity in that house because of the water. Yep. Yeah, you drive down the old highway, it turns on Earth. That's it. Yeah.
I was just going to ask you if you have found there is an increased paranormal activity around water, because that's something that comes up over and over in ghost lore, UFO lore, some cryptids. I mean, it just seems like there is such a connection to water.
Actually, funny that you're saying that. I'm working on a project myself that I've been doing for over 15 years now, and it's getting close to being complete. I've had to take the last couple of years off. We've been so busy on the show, but I want to wrap it up. What I have done is I have gathered haunted locations all over the country, tens of thousands, and I'm overlapping them in ArcGIS, and I'm going over ley lines, fault lines, and large geologic mapped, like we have lava fields out here. We have all kinds of stuff. And then I want to find that correlation. I'm going to look for that scientific correlation of a lot of this stuff. Now, a lot of these haunted locations are what people have put up on different sites. And a lot of it is, oh yeah, my high school's haunted. It probably isn't, but whatever. Okay. But, a lot of places are haunted, and so I want to see if there's commonality. But I've also looked at top religion, top occupations, how much money people are making. See, I'm looking at this like holistically to see if we can find commonalities anywhere.
I would be shocked, Colleen, if you didn't find probably multiple things that overlay on your map there. That is so cool. I can't wait to see that when you're done. Yeah,
one of the guys at work, he's going to help me with some of the GIS and stuff. In my field of work, I'm supposed to use GIS, and I absolutely despise it because I'm like, no, I want a water sample and look for frogs because that's my field of work. So someone else can do all the GIS stuff for me. He's going to help me figure out how to build the GIS database, and I've used Latin longs to start building everything. So I'm almost there. And I've looked at all 50 states. I actually have looked at 47 states. I have 3 left to go. So it'll be really interesting to see what we find, because I think we're going to find some commonalities. Water's one of them. But one of the other things I'm looking at is geologically, is there other minerals involved with that we have mapped that we know about? Like, is basalt one of them? Is all of these things? So,
yeah. Have you found that there are a lot of hauntings and other paranormal phenomena around caves? Because
Yes.
that is something I have run into as
Absolutely.
well. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the story of the Bell Witch, right?
Yep.
The Bell Witch Cave is on my list of places I'd like to go one day, but I'm a little bit afraid of it. So we'll see if that actually happens.
I think that the Bell Witch Cave is interesting. In caves, because caves have been used through prehistoric man, right? It was a shelter. So that energy's got to linger there. The other thing that we have a plethora of here in the West, and you certainly you have them in the East too, are abandoned mines.
Yeah.
We have somewhere on the magnitude of, just in the agency I work for, something like, I want to say 400,000 abandoned mine features in the West. And then the East you have, and that's gold and silver and all of the other minerals out here in the East. You have a lot of the old coal mines. A lot of them have been, the underground workings have now been flooded. But you have a lot of energy there with guys that have died in tragic events in these mines throughout the hundreds of years that this stuff has been in play. But then you have the natural cave system where you have people hiding out from predators and everything, and other tribes hiding out from tribes and all this stuff. It's a lot of energy.
Yeah. I was thinking about, like, when you talk about the mines and the caves, what pops in my mind is places where portals can be as well. I mean, when I go explore allegedly mines, I mean, that's what I think. Like, I think they also have water in them as well. Like, you say they flood out the caves and the mines. There's a lot of conduit in those areas. You have the rock, you have the water, and then a lot of energy within that space. So it wouldn't surprise me if portals are also within the caves because of that energy.
Yeah, and when you said caves, it reminds me of the Kentucky Goblin case.
Yes, I was going to bring that up. Yep. Hopkinsville.
Yep, on the I can't even talk. Hopkinsville Goblins.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I think cave systems, and we've talked about this, certainly Bertie and I, and we've been on, we're part of the North American Dogman Association. I'm the Idaho chapter president, and we talk a lot on Midnight Lycanthropy podcast. He's a friend of ours, and Kenny does amazing work. We're on the science team, and we're always talking about how if the Dogman is real, and it's been cited by so many people, you got to wonder, there's something going on. We have sightings in Idaho. How are they moving around? And in my mind, it's cave systems, or the portal idea. Dogman seems to be not. I don't know. It's interesting. It's fascinating because it really piqued my interest, Ken, when you were saying people who have seen some of these creatures then have other activity at their house, because the Kenny and I are doing a podcast on Tuesday, which will be released later. But there's an Idaho sighting that particular thing happened, where it was sighted, and then it was on his roof that night, and his neighbor's roof, and then things started going on at the house. So it was really kind of interesting that happened, and you talked about that.
Yeah, I think the whole Dogman thing is fascinating, because when you look at, and you're certainly more well-versed than I am in this, so feel free to correct me, but from what I understand, when you look at a lot of these sightings, what a lot of the witnesses report is intelligence behind the eyes. And you kind of get the same thing with Sasquatch sightings. I know someone who saw one and reported the same kind of feeling, like there was a higher intelligence behind the eyes. And I know the dog man thing usually seems more malevolent, and I don't know if that's just because it looks scary or if it actually is. But it kind of goes back to it. Certainly, it could be, you mentioned the portals, could be the cave systems, or it could be this this idea of the super spectrum, where these things can just pop in and out on their own of our spectrum, and visit us when they want to, eat some roadkill, scare someone up in Wisconsin, and take off.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating, Ken, and I'm gonna actually hook you up with Kenny, because this might be a really fascinating concept for him to talk about on one of his shows.
Okay.
He's he's a researcher. This is he's a journalist, a researcher, and this is really his forte to talk about the stuff with the dog man. But I look at it more from the biological standpoint of, if this thing is real, biologically, what could it be? Could it be more of a cave hyena? Could it be something dire wolf that really has been elusive for all these years, more tied to that? I don't know. But anyway, there's been some alleged attacks. Some people have been attacked in Canada on this thing. They seem to be a little bit more menacing than some of the other cryptids. So, yeah.
And from some other accounts, they spot them, and it takes off, or it scares the living heck out of them. They go home, and all of a sudden it starts showing up in their dreams and chasing them down, scaring the heck out of them in their dreams. And then again, paranormal phenomenon going on around the house or on the property.
Yeah. Now,
it's almost like they're feeding on your fear.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, well, think about it. You have a run-in with something like that, and it would keep you up at night. It would keep you up at night,
Did any of you read the new Skinwalker Ranch book that came out, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon?
I have it. I'm halfway through it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a dog man that makes an appearance in that book if you haven't gotten to that part yet.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I no, I've gotten there yet. Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, so think about this. The other thing that we have in almost every town, Pocatello has them, are tunnel systems.
Mm-hmm.
So not all the tunnels in most towns are flooded. Some of them have been, most of them have been abandoned for safety reasons, but they're still there, and they're not necessarily flooded. They were put in there for different reasons. Sometimes it was boiler systems that were heating larger buildings and stuff like that. So they have chases, with piping. And other times in Pocatello's case, I think it was really inclement weather. Our winters here used to be, they still get bad, 20 below sometimes, but they used to be so much worse. And so sometimes they were using tunnel systems to kind of get around. They didn't have snow plows back in the day. So it was to get around. A lot of nefarious things happened in those tunnels. But what if now some of these abandoned tunnels are a way for these creatures have figured it out? They can move through tunnels. I was at Bethesda Naval Center, or the medical center, probably a dozen times before I realized there was a whole level underneath Bethesda. That was a city, it's a military. There was restaurants. I'm like, are you kidding me? I've been here how many times? I didn't know it was down there. There's arcades, there was restaurants, there's the dry cleaners, all this stuff down there. Had no idea. Yeah, Mad Max, the tunnels are accessible in some locations, but they keep the public out because of safety. But yeah. So, Portland, Seattle, certainly like New York, almost every major city has many, 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 many tunnels. So, in Portland, Oregon, they Shanghai people, and that's how they got crews on these ships.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah, there's various ways for things to get around, and we're not always the most observant species out there. We're so preoccupied with our phones and our laptops and stress and work that we don't really observe.
So
Yeah,
we
and
talked about that. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I didn't mean to cut you off, Jesse. Go
You
ahead.
didn't really. I was just thinking, we talk about how they move through tunnel systems and caves, but we also haven't really talked about how some, like for instance, UFOs or extraterrestrials, how they can put on a different skin, and that freaks me out.
Like lizard people?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's a whole fascinating rabbit hole in itself, right? So you have the traditional grays, right? And you have the Nordics, the tall blondes, and you have the lizard people, and you have the praying mantis types. You have the tall grays, you have a bunch of different types, right? So the question is, are they really coming from somewhere else really far away? Or are they just phasing into our existence from either somewhere, some other spectrum they're on, or another dimension? I mean, hey, given enough time, I'm certain that the human race will learn how to conquer the speed of light. And I know they say that's impossible right now, but let's check back in 1,000 years and see where we are. Hopefully, we're still here.
Yeah.
But if there is some other alien race out there that's developed this technology, maybe they can bend space-time. That's really cool. But it seems to me a more plausible answer right now is that they're somewhere here and we just can't interact with them right now because they choose not to allow us to. They're on their own spectrum, they're on their own dimension, whatever the case is. And there is, yeah, so like that's a good question, Mad Max. Are grays like drones or worker bees? A lot of people think so. A lot of people describe them as biological drones or biological robots. They seem void of emotion. They don't seem to understand when they're hurting somebody. They may well be, or that may just be how their species is. I truly don't know. It may be the manifestation of whatever reality they're coming from. They can't quite get it right when they shift into our reality. They're just not quite fully human. You think about like an Indrid Cold at Point Pleasant in the Mothman Flat. He seemed mostly human, but he wasn't quite right. He had that big smile, that big mouth, and he was very awkward about things like time, place, person. Didn't know how to express these concepts. And it's not that different from a gray who can't express emotion or pain or understand when they're causing us emotion or pain. So
sounds like Indrid Cold.
Right. Yeah.
That's another fascinating one. That was creepy when I was listening to that one.
What is this, Birdie?
Indrid Cold. It was a UFO case many years ago where this cigar-shaped craft would buzz past people, turn and stop, and a guy would get out, and I can't remember how he was dressed, like a fedora, trench coat, pants, stuff like that, but he had really pale skin, he didn't look quite right, and he had a huge smile. And when the people stopped and got out, and he'd walk up to them and he'd ask them like, hey, how you doing? What's your job? Just really mundane questions, but they're looking at him like, this guy is just not right. And they just give him pretty vague answers. And then he'd be like, okay, have a nice day, and get back in his tube and fly away. And yeah, while that was happening, their cars would shut down. The electromagnetic interference would make their cars stop. So they couldn't leave. They had to talk to this guy.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever run across somebody that you didn't think not, I'm not being mean here. Wasn't right. I mean, I've had that happen to me a couple of times where all my spidey senses were going off, hanging all over the place. Not like they were on the psychopathy scale or anything. I'm talking like maybe not human.
Yeah.
I've run across that, and I kept trying to talk myself out, like, no, you know, you got to wonder.
Yeah, the uncanny valley.
Uncanny valley. I've not heard any of this stuff, Bertie. We need to talk more.
I think of like Men in Black. What do you think, Pam?
Yeah, so that's actually what I was about to say. We're like operating on a psychic connection here now. The Men in Black, if you go back to the original reports of the Men in Black, they're not some government agents coming here to like shut you up about UFOs. Like, that's not what they were. They were very robotic.
Sorry, that's what I got.
Yeah, very robotic, very awkward. They were extremely pale. They were not quite dressed right. They had wires coming out of their socks. They'd have to stop the conversation to take pills, and they'd ask for water everywhere they went, much like fairies did, or the Fae in like the Middle Ages. This was not like the CIA coming to make you be quiet. This was something else, very different. Yeah, not like Will and Tommy, Mad Max.
Yeah, we did a podcast on that one time, Bertie, and you were talking about that.
Mhm.
That weirdness, that they didn't seem human.
Yeah, they didn't. Well, that poor dude, and when he got zapped in the movie theater, that was not human at all. Because remember, he was sitting in the movie theater, and he noticed that a man in black came in and followed him to the movie theater. And I think this movie theater is like empty, all except for him. And this guy walks in, and he's getting a real strange vibe from him. And he turns and looks at him, and his eyes just glow, this bright light, and it kind of like shocks him, and he's freaking out, and he runs home. And there's a light coming out from underneath his door. And he opens it up, and the light just disappears, but there's a smell of brimstone.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of his notes that he was taken for MUFON, because he was the founder of MUFON, was gone.
Did the person happen to mention what color the light was under the door? Just out of curiosity.
I'd have to relook it up. I would think like a yellowish light.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I'd have to look it up again.
Gotcha. I was just curious because I've come across so many stories about like a light blue light being associated with multiple paranormal phenomena. I was really hoping you were going to say like blue, but I've heard yellow too. So it's all different.
In some of our cases, paranormally, where it's more of a haunting situation, we've run across a lot of blue or very white light.
Okay.
Very white light. Yeah. It's this whole thing is fascinating to me, and I don't know, like, being down, we were talking a little bit about Vernal, Utah, and where the Phenomenon is, and we were talking about that before the show started. And being down there is so eye-opening anywhere down in that whole Vernal Basin area, because it's not if you're going to see something, it's when you're going to see it. Almost any given night. Every night that I've been there, I've been going down there for several years now. Every night that I've been there, I see something in the sky. And as someone who flies, and I've grown up in aviation, I've flown all my life, and I was an air traffic controller, I know we do not have the capability of flight like what I see down there in the sky. And it is absolutely mind-blowing to see what you see down there any given night. Now, I wonder too, sometimes when I'm thinking about, I can't wait to get all this little project that I have done, that I've been working on for all these years, done, because I want to see if that we know it's a cluster of activity down there, but also is paranormally the haunting aspect and the cryptid aspect. Does everything line up with UFO activity? Do these things line up? Now, I haven't really gathered the UFO stuff, so that I'm going to have to start plugging in after I get all of the layers, the GIS layers done. But there has to be something. Is it the ley lines? Is it what brings them into a particular area to be so visible to almost everybody who's there? I don't know.
Yeah, again, like there's so many water associations, and you mentioned ley lines, and I would be fascinated to see how all that lines up, just because I think you're really onto something, and I can't wait to see it.
Well, I hope to get it done soon. Like I said, I retire in 1 year, 4 months, and 20 days. Not that I'm counting. And then not at all. And then I can actually put a little bit more time into this. But the podcast is eating my lunch right now to try to, because I used to work on it every single night. And I haven't worked on it now for I think it's been about 10 months. I had to put it away because we were so busy with the show. But it'll come back. I mean, I know where I can pick up any given night and start it up again. So, but it's been a labor of love, and I can't wait to see. And maybe it'll show me that there's no correlation at all. That's part of doing research, right? Mm-hmm. That there's no correlation. I think there's going to be, but maybe it's going to blow me right out and just say, nope, there's no correlation at all. It's just a randomness. And
it's also possible that there is a correlation. It's just not something you're looking at, right? Like, well, maybe it's something different. Maybe it's
along a longitudinal line or a latitudinal line. Maybe that's where I'm plugging all this stuff in. I don't know. It'll be really interesting. And right now I'm only looking at the US because like I said, there's actually tens of thousands of entries on this data sheet that I'm doing. And so if I have to put in the whole globe, I'm just going to lose my mind. There's no way. I'm going to have to outsource that. But yeah. So
that would be a team project for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, do you guys have any more questions for Ken? I mean, I think we could talk for hours and hours and hours. So
I think I'm good for right now.
I think Dirty Birdie is tired.
It's been a long day. It's been a long week.
I think Cam is just trying to soak everything in.
Yeah, it's a lot to download.
And one of the things about it is this is not like the main, even within paranormal, this is not the mainstream theory or thought process, right? Mm-hmm. Like, to most people, ghosts are ghosts and they're over here, and UFOs are UFOs and they're over here, and cryptids are up here, and whatever else is over here, and it's a little unconventional to say that all of this stuff is related, and maybe it's not. I'm totally open to being wrong. I don't think every paranormal phenomena is related. I had I don't want to call it a dream, because I think it was more than a dream, where my grandmother visited me after she passed, and I don't think that had anything to do with aliens or ghosts or anything. I think she was coming from somewhere else in space and time to come say goodbye to me. How do I think UFO travel? Mad Max wants to know. That is a fascinating question, and this really gets into what do you think they are? Because if you think they're plasma entities, then they're just kind of self-propelling on plasma, I guess. If you think that they are nuts and bolts craft coming from another planet, then you can kind of go down like the Bob Lazar rabbit hole with the element 115 and who knows, whatever else they might use to propel themselves. Maybe they fold space and time, or maybe they're just coming through that portal from the super spectrum or another dimension, and they're not really coming from that far away, and they're not doing anything really special to travel, you know. But they do definitely have non-ballistic motion. I've seen that, you know, firsthand. These things are definitely not moving in a way that we can understand. I'm not a physicist, and I'm not going to try to guess how they could possibly accomplish the motions that they seem to do. Yes. Oh, Art Bell is one of my heroes. Mad Max just brought up Art Bell. I when I wrote this book, I literally had old Art Bell shows playing in the background the whole time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I remember like listening to him, not in his heyday, but like mid to late 2000s. And you know, he's definitely one of the icons of paranormal history.
You
And
bet.
I wonder whatever happened to Art's parts, by the way. You know, they're out there somewhere. He said he had parts from a UFO crash at Roswell. And
Roswell. Yeah, I remember
yeah,
that.
when he died, I don't know what happened to those parts, but I guess they're out there somewhere.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. One of the guys on our team, Tim, lived in Roswell for some time and spent a lot of time down there. And absolutely, without a doubt, he's talked to the locals involved with a lot of that stuff. It happened. It happened, and no amount of saying it didn't happen is going to convince anybody from Roswell that it didn't happen. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only question really is were their bodies or not. I believe there probably were.
I agree.
But you know, I don't. If you ever go look at Colonel Corso's book, I think it's the day after Roswell. That's a great read. He talks about what allegedly happened with the bodies and the crafts and how it has spurred on the technological advancements of the 20th and 21st centuries, and a lot of interesting stuff there. If you can't tell, I basically just like spend all my free time reading about UFOs, ghosts, and cryptids. So
That's awesome.
All the
just
awesome
had to-
qualities.
yeah.
My dad was on a search and rescue mission once. He was when he got out of the Air Force, he was a pilot for Civil Air Patrol, and he did 4,500 flight hours just on search and rescue missions. A lot of flight time, and they were in formation over Rainier, looking for a downed aircraft. They were flying. I think they were flying up in formation, and then they were going to break off and start doing grids that they were flying, and they had something that came in and flew with them for a while. All the pilots saw it. There was a lot of radio chatter about it, and none of them said anything to air traffic control because no one's going to believe them.
And that is so significant because Mount Rainier is where Kenneth Arnold had his famous 1947 sighting, which just a few weeks before Roswell happened, by the way. And that's where we got the term flying disc and flying saucer from, was the Kenneth Arnold sighting. The newspapers picked up that terminology, or made up that terminology, really.
What do you think of the Tic Tac video? I wanted to ask you, and I forgot. I've heard of it being debunked on some platforms because they're saying it was a tracking motion problem with the sensors in the jets with their. What do you think?
I mean, it seems convincing to me, but I don't know anything about aviation. I've never been in the military. I don't know anything about targeting systems, so I'm really not enough of an expert to really pass judgment, I don't think. I mean, eyeballing it seems legitimate to me, but my concern with stuff like that is that they wanted us to see that for some reason. And the question is why. They're never going to let us know anything they don't want us to know. And I do mean the government, the military industrial complex. They're not going to tell us about this stuff unless they want us to know something. And if they want us to know something, there's a reason for it. So the question is why? And I think that's a very important question to ask about anything under this umbrella. Why are we seeing it? Why are we being told this? Why did this appear to me? There's
Well,
generally a reason.
Yeah, and it's
Distracting.
interesting that you know that you say that, because you're talking about how the government has now said, okay, there is unidentified flying objects in the sky, but we're not gonna say that's
Right.
what it really is. You know,
Dirty Birdie, you were saying something?
Distraction, probably. That's why they showed it to us.
Distract
Yeah.
us from something else that's going on they don't want us to think about.
Yeah. Look over here. Well, I'm doing this.
Well,
That's
now
the
the pilots who they were at the Phenomenon, I think, a couple of years ago and talked about those videos. So it'd be, and Brian, who was there with us last year, Dirty Bird, he bought all of the years of videos from Phenomenon. So I need to get to those videos and watch those interviews there. But so the gentleman who was talking about the Tic Tac video and how that in his mind, it was just a problem with the sensors on the aircraft, and what they were looking at was somebody who was doing an analysis of it was an aircraft that went down in the ocean and they never found it, out of the Philippines, I think.
Malaysia something. Malaysia's the flight.
The Malaysia flight, right?
Something,
And so he was analyzing all of the data and throwing it into the super duper analysis that they have out now to try to show where the flight actually was compared to where they thought it was. And then they brought up the Tic Tac and tried to show how it's basically a pinpoint in space and how radar systems can get that wrong. And it was really quite a fascinating analysis, but then I don't, like you said, I don't have enough information to be able to debunk it or say it's correct. I don't know.
Yeah, and like what it kind of comes down to for me is like so many of these cases, it's, do you believe the witness? Right. And Commander Fravor seems like a guy who's perfectly honest and respectable and reputable, and I have no reason not to believe that he saw what he says he saw.
They were certainly excited, and it sounded like was two different aircraft that saw it, because they were chattering back and forth. So two pilots see the same thing, and what he's talking about is like, you're at a high altitude. They were at a fairly high altitude when they saw it, and due to the curvature of the atmosphere, it can bend the light. Their systems are trying to lock onto that thing, and it's moving all around, and that it has something to do with atmosphere. Anyway, it's way out there, and I can't understand it completely. So, yeah. But I think, do I believe that there are UFOs? Absolutely, without a doubt. I see too much movement in the sky, knowing that we don't have that capability. Yes. And it's too hot. And it's not satellites. And it's not Starlink. So, yeah. Some strange things out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Ken, we really want to thank you for your time. And we would love to have you back on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. This
I would love to.
So much fun. So much fun to talk with you about this. And I can't wait I'm going to get through this book this weekend. Absolutely. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a long book, really. It's like 130 pages. It's but digestible.
That's better than me. I got one.
No, when you said a book and then you gave me the link, I didn't even look at the link of the book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is there an audio? Because I'm so busy, I don't read.
Yeah.
I have such a hard time sitting down. I have such a huge library I can't get to yet. So.
Yeah, I would really like to learn how to get the book on audio, because it opens it up for, more people, not only people who are busy and driving, but people with disabilities and stuff, who may not be able to read the book.
Yes. Well, we have the person on our team he's on our paranormal team, and his name is Mark, and he went to broadcasting school, and he has the voice.
Okay.
So if you ever want it done, he can do it. He's amazing. His voice is amazing. So
very cool.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes. But okay, thanks everybody. We're going to wrap it up for tonight. We want to thank everybody for hanging out with us. It's always, we never know exactly how many people are on because every platform doesn't show up on our counts. And so when we get off the show, then we go back and, Mad Max said, pimp that book again. We're going to do it. It's called High Strangeness. And I don't know why it keeps getting blurry on me, but yep, it's Kenneth's book. I put the link on from Amazon, and let me see if I can paste it in again to the chat. Yep, it's coming at you guys. So you guys can copy out of the chat the link, go right to Amazon and pick up his book. It's High Strangeness, and it is very, very cool. And yep, can't wait to have you back, Ken. We'll be in touch, and I will. Anyway, that's enough for tonight. And we'll talk to everybody soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.